Thank you. I'm Mr. Lehner, and welcome back to Mr. Lehner's Math Extravaganza. In today's episode, we're going to start Investigation 2 of Variables and Patterns. We're going to focus a little bit about independent and dependent variables like we talked about in class. If you have your CMP3 book at home, you can turn to page 51. We're going to take a look at an example problem that kind of works with independent and dependent variables, as well as, again, examining our tables and graphs, which we did back in Investigation 1, to help us in these areas. So again, let's not waste any more time. Let's take a look at an example up here. We're going to take a look at problem 2. Again, if you are at home, it might be easier for you to read it in your book rather than to focus on the screen, but I'm going to read it out loud. Desi is planning a go-kart party. Sounds like a lot of fun. Cartland gives him a table of group rates. Thunder Alley gives him a graph. The table and graph are shown below. So again, like we've talked about in class, is it easier to look at a graph? Is it easier to look at a table? When is it appropriate to choose between both of these or either one of these? So we're going to take a look through some questions with these two examples. Here's the Cartland price packages. It says number of laps raced and the cost it's going to cost you for those number of laps. Alright, so there's our table. So let's take a look at our graph here. Okay, we got our Thunder Alley group rates. Here's the price, so that's how much it's going to cost us, and the number of laps raced. So these examples here, the table and the graph here, are showing the same information in terms of the x and y axis variables, the laps raced and the cost. So those are the same two variables that we're going to be working with. Now, when we talked about independent and dependent variables, do you know which one is our dependent variable? The cost is our dependent variable. The cost is the dependent variable because the cost depends on the number of laps that are raced. So the number of laps raced are the independent variables, and the cost is going to be the dependent variable because the cost is going to depend on how many laps that you are going to race. And I can use either the table or the graph to show this. Alright, let's look at some of the questions. A says to find the cost at both locations for 50 laps. Well, number of laps 50, pretty easy to see. Hey, it's going to cost me $105 if I go with Cartland to do 50 laps. Then I'm going to look at Thunder Alley. 50 laps here, and let's see, it's a little bit below 100, so I might say it's about 95. So for 50 laps, it's going to cost me $95 at Thunder Alley, and it's going to cost me $105 at Cartland. Interesting. B, find the cost at 20 laps. We'll start up here. At 20 laps, this is going to cost me $45 at Cartland. At 20 laps here, this is about halfway between 40 and 60, so I would say it's about 50. So to do 20 laps here, it's going to cost me $50, but it's going to cost me $45 there. So it's kind of interesting. For 20 laps, it was cheaper at Cartland, but for 50 laps, it was cheaper at Thunder Alley. So very interesting to look at that. There's two different advantages here. C, find the cost at both locations for 35 laps. Well, let's look. Ooh, the table doesn't tell me up there 35 laps. How can I figure that out? Well, I know that halfway between 30 and 40 is 35. Halfway, or the difference between 65 and 85 is $20, so halfway between that would be $10. So if I added $10 to 65, 35 laps would cost me $75. Again, I looked at my table up here and I was able to work through to figure out the cost at 35 laps. Even though the table doesn't tell me. I can't just say, well, the table doesn't say 35 laps, so I can't figure it out. Well, you can. You just have to look in what the information is that's being given to you. 35 laps here, so again, about in between 35 laps. If I were to put a little circle here, it's kind of about halfway in between 60 and 80. So this is about, at 35 laps, it's going to cost me $70. So it looks like Thunder Alley is a better deal for 35 laps than the Cartland price packages. This is very interesting what we've looked at so far. What I want you to do is I'd like you to answer questions D, E, and F. Pause this video, and we're going to see what you guys come up with at home. Alright, question D. Look for patterns in the relationships between the number of laps and cost at Thunder Alley. How is the pattern shown in the table? Now, don't give me that first or second grade type of response and say, well, I notice the more laps you do, the higher the price goes. Well, we kind of know that. We can say that's what like a base level, or more of, I don't want to say an easier one, but it's an easier way to look at that. But let's dig deeper. Let's get that 6th grade understanding here. As I'm looking up here, I noticed that to do 10 laps, it cost me $25. At 20 laps, there was a $20 increase, so the number of laps doubled, and the price was increased by $20. Then I look, for another 10 laps, I had to go $20. For another 10 laps, I had to go $20 more. Another 10 laps, $20 more. So I noticed that for every 10 laps, I was adding on $20 to our original starting price. Kind of interesting. Then if I look at question E, look at the pattern between Cartland. How is it shown in the graph here? Actually, that should say, this should be for Thunder Alley, and that should be for Cartland here. So we just caught an error in the book. Sometimes I might make mistakes. Sometimes the company might make mistakes. That's kind of interesting. I didn't notice that until right now. So let's take a look at the graph here for Thunder Alley. So let's look at the relationship here. You're starting at $20 and you have not gone anywhere yet. I'll go 10 laps and I look up and it costs me about, I would say like $35 or so if I'm looking. 20 laps would kind of be in between here. 30 laps, I'm actually going to skip to 40. I'm going to do a little cheat here because I can see it's pretty much on that line there. So at 40 laps, I know that it's going to cost me $80 total. So it's interesting. If I'm starting and I haven't gone any laps, I know that I have to pay $20 as like a down payment. I got to start with $20 there. Okay? How much is it going to cost me per lap if I look here at 40? Well, if we go 40 laps and it costs us $80, I can't just say, well, it's $2 a lap because I started with $20. So it's going to be, let's say if it's $1 a lap, my total is going to be $80. So if it was $1 a lap, that would give me $40, and I started with $20, that would give me $60. How can I get an extra $20 out of this? I can charge $1.50 a lap? Well, let's see. 1 times 40 would be $40. A half times 40 would be $20, which is $60. And the $20 there, I now have $80 based off this chart. So I can tell from my graph here that it's going to cost you $1.50 per lap because I'm starting with $20. I walk up to the Thunder Alley group, I say, here's my $20 we'd like to race. How many laps are you going to do? We're going to do 40 laps. It's going to cost you $1.50 per lap that you do. Now if I made that same adjustment up here, we noticed in our table that it was increasing by $20. So for every 10 laps we were going, it was costing us $20. But how much was our down payment for the Cartland? I know you guys know this at home. $5. I put $5 down. I walked up. Here's my $5, sir. You're going to go 10 laps. It's going to cost you $20. So how much money per lap? $2 per lap. So I go 20 laps. 20 times 2 would be 40 bucks. Add the $5 deposit. I go 30 laps. $2 per every lap. 30 times 2 is 60. Add my $5 deposit. I'm at 65. So we're starting to see, we're digging deeper. Our brains are getting some wrinkles inside here. We're starting to dig deeper into this chart and table to figure out the price per lap, how much a down payment is, maybe what's our better deal, which is question F, which is interesting here. Which location seems to offer the better deal? This is a dependent question. If I decided that, hey, we're going to race a lot of us, we're going to do 60 laps, well, 60 laps is going to cost you about $110 to do 60 laps. But if I do 60 laps over here, it's going to cost me $125. So if I wanted to do 60 laps, I would definitely go to Thunder Alley group rates because it's going to be a better price for my group. Now let's say that, you know what, we don't want to stay there that long. Maybe we're going to mini golf a little bit, go outside in a sand area or the beach, do some volleyball, bowling, something else. We're only going to do 20 laps. Well, if I do 20 laps here at Thunder Alley, 20 laps is going to cost me about 50 bucks here. 20 laps is going to cost me $45 here, which is a $5 savings. So I would go here with a smaller price. So if I'm doing a lower number of laps raced, I would definitely go to Cartland. If I was going to do more laps, I'd want to go to Thunder Alley because I am saving more money through that. So again, it kind of goes, if you're planning a party, maybe you're doing a birthday party or just a get-together with friends, sometimes you might want to do that. You might call two places and say, hey, we want to go go-karting, or we want to go paintballing, or we want to do bowling. What kind of deals can you give us? If we have 20 students or 20 friends, how much will it cost per person? And one place might say, oh, we'll charge you $5 per person. You might go to like another bowling alley and might say, we'll charge you $3.50, or we'll charge you $4 a person, but we'll throw in a free pizza or pop. So as you do this, you can definitely apply some of these situations with charts, tables to figure out better deals and kind of analyze both to see what's going to be better for you. Thank you for tuning in to Miscellaneous Math Extravaganza. As always, we'll see you next time.